G'day, gamers! Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Bajo. On the show this week, we get behind the wheel of Motorstorm, the PlayStation 3 title, and talk to the lead developer, Paul Hollywood.
In the Ultimate Showdown for this week, we'll be attempting to determine the best boss fight of all time.
And we talk to one of Australia's top sound designers who opens our eyes
and ears
to what it's like developing sound for today's top games.
Plus more pro gaming tips from Aya and Ask the Doc.
But first, here's the news.
Thomas Tull, the executive producer of the recent film 300, has founded a new company to make video games. Named Brash Entertainment, the company has announced their first project will be a game based on the film 300 March to Glory. They will create up to 100 other games linked to movies, books, or music within 5 years. Brash plans to outsource much of the development work globally. 300 March to Glory will be exclusive to the PSP. Thomas Tull is also the producer of Warcraft, a film based on World of Warcraft, which is currently in production.
In a world first, the Victorian government will purchase Xbox development kits and donate them to the Games Developers Association of Australia to give to smaller game studios free of charge. Australia's development industry is estimated to earn $100 million, and the Premier of Victoria, Steve Bracks, said the kits would provide enormous opportunities to emerging and established Victorian game developers, allowing them to compete in a US $31 billion market.
Counter-Strike Raffle Cup winners Team Immunity have secured themselves a spot in the finals of the Electronic Sports World Cup to be held in Paris in July. Immunity convincingly won the Australian heats held in Perth, maintaining their unbeaten LAN run that started in July 2006. A team called Made in Brazil from Brazil won the World Cup last year with teams from 50 countries competing in the tournament. Okay gamers, can you guess the retro game for this week? It's a pretty easy one. Matter of fact, if you can't get this one, just go take up gardening or something.
PlayStation has a great tradition when it comes to racing games, so it's no surprise that the launch lineup for the PS3 contains several titles. The most anticipated of these is Motorstorm. It's a demolition rally with enough explosions and vehicles to keep the most ardent of revhead happy.
The game is set in Monument Valley, USA, but it's developed in Northern England. Joining us now from Liverpool is Paul Hollywood, the creative lead on Motorstorm. Paul, thanks for joining us on Good Game.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So how does a development team in Northern England capture Monument Valley in the USA with HD quality?
It was quite a challenge because Monument Valley is an iconic place. People are very familiar with it through the old westerns. We used high-definition filming equipment. We strapped it to the underneath of a helicopter on a gimbal, and we flew over Monument Valley and took some of the first high-def aerial photograph footage ever taken. And this was done with the help of one of the cameramen from the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Did you actually drive through Monument Valley?
We didn't actually drive huge rigs, motorbikes, ATVs over Monument Valley, mainly because two reasons. It's not only is it a national park and protected, it's also a Navajo Indian sacred site. We had to get special permission from the Navajo elders, and they allowed us then to fly into the park and actually land a helicopter on top of some of the mesas. When we go somewhere on a reference trip, we're not just taking film footage or photographs. What we're also trying to do is get a feel for the place, you know, smell it, almost taste it. So when we come back to the office, we have like a personal attachment to it, and we can sort of bring that out in our graphics and our visuals.
There's plenty of good racing games out there, and especially some mega hits for the PlayStation series. What sets Motorstorm apart?
Fundamentally, it's next generation. It's a next generation console. Motorstorm is a next generation game. In any good racing game or any good racing game series, you have all the classic elements that are in there, so like the fun, the excitement, the adrenaline of any sort of quality racing game. But for Motorstorm, it's mainly the vast selection of vehicles that you can choose from. You mix these 7 different classes of vehicles together in our chaotic environment, then you're introducing whole brand new avenues of gameplay which haven't been experienced before. The great fun I find is the interaction between these different classes of vehicle, where you'd have a guy on a dirt bike been knocked over or knocked into by a big rig, and then the way he can sort of like the ragdoll can come off and interact with another vehicle, but also the sort of like little AI battles that you can get going, because the AI is very complex in Motorstorm. What we like to do is the novice that picks up Motorstorm will have a good fun, will have a good laugh and do reasonably well, but as you get to the ends of the sort of festival experience where you're playing the harder races against the harder AI, it can be a real challenge for the expert.
One thing that really strikes us is the intense realism of the car parts. Is there a mechanic on your team, and are all the innards different on each car?
Yeah, each vehicle class, as I say, the 7 classes of vehicle, all have individual characteristics. But within the 7 classes, you also have 5 different variations of that class. Now, each one of those is unique in its own way. But no, we don't have any mechanics actually who work at Evolution Studios, but we do have racing drivers, we do have ex-national championship rally drivers, we have a lot of racing enthusiasts, and we actually have our own track car at Evolution that on sunny days out, you know, some of the team members can go out and bomb around the racing track, obviously for reference purposes, no fun involved whatsoever.
Any particular challenges in developing for the PS3?
Yes, no one has developed a game on this console before, on this hardware. You just don't know what you're going to find. It was very, very exciting, yet a huge challenge because of the steep learning curve that we were on. It wasn't only till we'd spent maybe 18 months developing from scratch that we actually really started to come up with some really clever solutions using the architecture of the PlayStation 3, which, if you know, has got this very clever way of it's been able to split up the different things that we draw on screen. So we use the cell processors, each one running in parallel with the others, to do different jobs. So one would be looking after the physics, one would look after particles, one would be looking after the AI.
Tell us about Evo's philosophy on de-stressing activities.
And we have a philosophy at Evolution that we work hard, but we play harder. We try and play a lot harder. All the hard work that people have put in during the development of Motorstorm, we're going to take the whole development team to Las Vegas for a week. So I'm looking forward to that.
Paul Hollywood, thanks so much for joining us on Good Game.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And it's goodbye from the UK.
Okay, now what did you think of the game?
When they were making this game, they knew exactly what they were going for. They were going for fun, not realism. I mean, in one race, you've got all different kinds of vehicles. Cars, trucks, you got big rigs running into motorcycles. It's all hectic, and it's all about the crashes.
Think Road Rash, Burnout, Flat Out, all in HD. It's in the level design as well. I mean, there's a lot of things you wouldn't normally see in a rally game, but they're great fun.
Absolutely, and you know, the dust effects are great, lighting is great, the terrain is great, but I think I should point out here that the difference in this game between HD and non-HD is massive. In the non-HD, you've got, you know, the bushes looking a bit two-dimensional and textures that look about a decade old, whereas in HD, it looks truly spectacular. Unfortunately, if you want to take advantage of that, you have to get a HDMI cable, which could cost you around $100.
But on the plus side, I did see this as $20 cheaper than all the other PS3 titles on the shelf in the store.
Good point.
Collision graphics make up a great deal of the gameplay. In fact, you find yourself doing things that you know will make you lose the race, but you just do them anyway because they're fun. For example, the turbo button. If you hold that down for too long, your engine actually overheats and explodes. But you don't care because it's so fun and everything's shaking and you're going crazy and the fun.
Adding to the crash mayhem, you're fully capable of running the other racers off the track. In fact, it's pretty easy. Unfortunately, that can happen to you as well if you're unlucky. Even the tracks that you make in the ground affect the riders behind you, which kind of sucks if you're a motorbike rider. All this rolls by with a top-notch soundtrack in the background full of mainly rock, but also some breaks, techno, and even drum and bass from our very own Pendulum from Perth.
There are some inconsistencies, however, in the actual crashing. Sometimes you'll be going along at about 20% speed and you'll hit a small pebble and bam, you have a crash sequence. And other times you'll be going at 100% with the booster going as well. You hit a massive rock and you come out without a scratch. You can also use the 6-axis feature in Motorstorm, although it is a little bit awkward and a little bit laggy in the response times as well. And you also have to hold it perfectly still in center if you want to go straight ahead. So it does feel a little bit tacked on, and it is not a really good replacement for the Rumble, which we came to love.
Yeah, don't even bother with it. Any other problems that you had with it?
There is another major problem, and it's to do with the multiplayer. You can play it online, which is fine, but half the fun in these games is being able to sit with your mate and play it on the same screen, and it doesn't have a split screen option, and that frustrated me.
You know, it seems to me the longevity of this game is going to depend on one thing. How long will it take for these crash sequences to get old? And you know, we somehow found the resolve to sit through more than a few of them. What's your final choke rate?
You know, it looks great, it plays great, it's just a lot of fun to play, but without the split screen mode, I couldn't give it more than 8 diesel-powered rubber chickens out of 10. Also, I found myself really wanting a chain when I was on that motorbike road rash. Days.
We've covered both king-hit PS3 launch titles now, and while I couldn't say Resistance should be your take-home game for the PS3, this I can. The limited multiplayer puts a ceiling on any rating this game will ever get, but it's still good, simple fun, kids love it. I'm with you on that 8 out of 10.
Hey guys, recently we've been getting quite a lot of questions on the forums about when or what to upgrade in your computer. Now, my advice here is to wait until mid-year when the next range of hardware comes out from most major manufacturers, and prices on the current really top-end hardware are going to drop like a rock. For those of you switching to Vista, most major manufacturers will have drivers out for their hardware by this stage too, so upgrading should be even easier. One thing you can upgrade now is the RAM. With RAM prices being dirt cheap at the moment, it's definitely the right time to be upgrading. If you're a bit strapped for cash, a format reinstall is the easiest way to get a bit of extra performance out of your computer. Till next time.
It's showdown time. Each week here on Good Game, we pit elements of a game against each other to find out who or what is the best in the ultimate showdown.
This week we've been racking our brains to pit boss against boss in the best boss fight.
Now this is a pretty tough one, John, because there's so many different boss fights and so many different platforms to play them on.
That's right, and we can't really possibly pick one, so we've hit the forums and our little bag of retro tricks to pick out some fun suggestions of yours and ours.
Welcome to your grave, sucker.
My favourite is the Simpsons arcade boss fight with Burns, because he had so many different forms and it was a fun boss to play, and he had little nukes and lasers to keep you on your toes. Plus, if you played as Marge, you got to beat him with a vacuum cleaner.
I think the bird fight from Shadow of the Colossus easily beats that. Just that feeling when you first jump onto the bird, you're airborne, the climactic music, it's unbeatable.
Or what about Bowser from Mario 64? He was a pretty tough cookie to crumble in his day.
So long, you both.
Our very own Aya thinks that the mechanized Hitler in Wolfenstein is worthy of mention, mainly for the ruffle factor.
Yeah, there is a definite ruffle there. Something about a game that starts off with shooting normal dogs and soldiers and ends with a giant mechanical robot Nazi.
There's also something very cool about him being the first boss in that genre, in the FPS genre.
True that, and you know, Daniil thinks that the Quake Shambler fight deserves a mention as well.
Frosty from the forums mentioned his awe in running into the cyber demon from Doom for the first time. He also groaned a lot.
Goldfish says Hans, the boss from MDK2, was the toughest he's ever fought.
Odark reckons the Dot from Pong is a pretty tough boss to fight. Lols.
Well, look, we have to come to some sort of conclusion here. We're just going to go with the forum vote because it's impossible for us to say for sure. Samson X, John Roffel Reborn, and Grimm all say that Ganon, the last fight in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, was the best boss fight.
It definitely was spectacular to watch. It was well set up and a lot of fun to take down.
It's fun to think about, too. Next week, the Ultimate Showdown's all about the best opening sequence, so be sure to get on the forum and give your input.
Each week on the show, we like to give away a Good Game shirt to the best review posted on our forums. This week, it's...
La 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 la, so you think you can't game.
This week we're looking at racing games, in particular Gran Turismo 4. Now when it comes to racing games, I'm a bit of a noob, so instead we've got a resident motorhead, Dr. Daniil, with us. So we're looking at Gran Turismo 4. Can you tell us a few things about how to play a bit better?
Sure thing. I mean, the easiest way is to modify the suspension settings in your car. If you make it stiffer than the rear suspension, as well as increasing the side-to-side roll of the car with the stabilizers, I mean, you can really change the entry-level entry speed of your car.
Sure thing. If you increase the front spring rate compared to the rear spring rate, you can have more weight transferred on the front wheels through corners, so you have a better cornering speed. I sure do. On trial mountain circuit, see if you can get under a minute 12 with an unmodified car and hard racing tyres. Dan out.
And so that's how you can increase your cornering speed.
That's a lot of good info there. So for us plebs though, do you have a simple tip?
Sure thing. If you increase the front spring rate compared to the rear spring rate, you're going to have more weight transferred onto the front wheel through corners, so you'll have a better cornering speed.
So for those more hardcore tyre shredders out there, do you have a challenge for them this week?
I sure do. On trial mountain circuit, see if you can get under a minute 12 with an unmodified car and hard racing tyres.
Well, you heard it. So until next week, this is Aya out.
Dan out.
Good game.
Hey, John. You know, games have been around for almost 50 years.
Really?
First one was by William Higginbotham in 1958, to be precise. It was a tennis-like game on an oscilloscope.
Interesting.
You know what?
What?
Had no sound.
Really?
Mutoid.
Really?
It's hard to think about games without sound nowadays.
You know, there's a guy up in the Central Coast, Scott Cairns, so you could talk to him about that.
Oh, really?
He does modern-day sound design.
I shall.
Have fun, Ski.
I'm here with Scott Cairns in his studio. Scott, welcome to Good Game.
Thank you, Stephen.
Tell us about what you do.
Essentially, I do audio for computer games. Anything that makes a noise within the game, we have to do the music for a computer game, the sound effects, the voice acting. So anything that you hear in a video game, that's what we do.
Is there much of a difference in composing music for a game as opposed to a movie or a commercial?
That's a good question. I think with a movie or a TV show, it's a linear format, so you're usually watching it from start to finish and you tend to just sort of watch it once all the way through. With a computer game, we're called upon to write music that will actually loop within the game. So if a character is exploring, say, an environment within a game, our music might have to loop over a long period of time whilst the character's doing, of the player, I should say, is doing what they're doing. So our music actually has to have a lot more mileage than your typical sort of TV music.
What about other sound effects in a game? How do you go about getting those?
Yeah, more often than not, we go out on location and record our own sounds. I do sometimes get some strange looks when I'm out and about. I've had to go out into the field and record, you know, different sounds in the environment and like traffic driving by and mic up car engines and buses and all sorts of things. So I do get some odd looks from time to time.
What's the weirdest one?
The weirdest one I've done, I don't want to offend your viewers, but I actually had to do the sounds of vomit for Jackass. And I did it myself, and it was almost method acting. It was quite painful to do, and I had to do all the gagging and the retching. I purchased a couple of cans of fruit salad and tipped them out at the same time, so all the splatter and the chunks hitting the ground, and that's my job. That's what I do, so, yeah.
Who are your idols in the industry? Who do you look up to and take inspiration from?
I've got a few. There's a gentleman called Koji Kondo, and he's the man that wrote the soundtracks to Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Brothers. He's quite an icon in our industry. He's been doing it so long as well. I think he's been writing music for the games for 20 or 30 years. One of my favourite idols is a game composer called Michael Giacchino, and he started out writing the music to Call of Duty. And Michael's actually since progressed from video games into Hollywood, and he did the soundtrack to The Incredibles and Mission Impossible 3. He's actually the composer for the series of Lost as well. So he started out as a video game composer and went all the way to the top.
How did you get started with all of this?
I started out as a musician, I guess, like most kids. I was playing in rock bands, and I had a dream when I was younger of being a rock star that never quite worked out. But I kind of got sidetracked for a while. I went into IT for a while, but that kind of helped me because it gave me a grounding in computers and technology. And my advice to anyone that's wanting to get into this field, I would just suggest starting small. There's, of course, all level of games from, you know, Halo all the way down to your small online games where you can go online and download a shareware game. And if you start small and just, you might be doing 10 or 15 sound effects and maybe 2 pieces of music for a little online game. It's a credit for you. It's experience in the industry. You learn about the development of the game and also writing your music to a deadline and creating your sound to a deadline. And you can just slowly work your way up, and who knows, in the next few years you might be working on the next Halo installment.
So is it a good living?
Yes and no. It is. I guess this job has a lot of romance attached to it. That while I wake up in the morning and write music for computer games, I love my job. I'm very passionate about it, but I also do need to satisfy my clients. I need to write to a deadline. Also, because I'm a contractor, I get hired by the game studios. Every time I finish a game, I'm unemployed again. So it's always a case of looking for the next job to come along. Something peculiar to our industry too is that video game musicians don't get royalties like a film or a TV guy. So those guys they might write music for a TV show, and then they're getting royalties come through as the TV show gets played all around the world, and they're getting this passive income while they sleep. Sadly, with us in computer games, there is no royalty scheme as such. So the money we get paid for writing the music for a title, once that title's done and I've been paid, that's it. It's a one-off payment, and that's essentially all I get.
For anyone wanting to get into sound design, where should they start?
Yeah, if you're doing sound design, if you'd like to do sound effects, it's probably handy to try and to get yourself a portable field recorder. They're available now from as little as a few $100s all the way up to thousands of dollars. And essentially what that is a little device that you can take with you. You can go outdoors and record sounds in your environment. So you just need a good microphone and this little field recorder, and then you can go out on location and record your sound effects, take it back to the computer and put it up on the computer, and then we can process and adjust the sound to suit the game. In terms of music, if you can get yourself a sequencing package like Cubase or Sonar or something like that, and you can just start writing music in your little sequencing package and go from there.
So you don't really need to be able to play a lot of instruments then?
What I would count as my skills for writing music in computer games is one, how to compose music and put all of the elements of the music together. I do play a keyboard in order to do that, but I wouldn't count myself as a really proficient musician. Like, I'm not a concert pianist and I'm not a great guitarist or anything like that. And the second point is that it's really important to understand what kind of music will suit a particular game. So if you're doing a skateboarding title, you probably don't want orchestral music, you know. So they sound like obvious things, but it's really good just to have a good understanding of what kind of music will suit that game and that demographic and that market and that type of thing.
Good game.
You know, John, it's not always when I'm sitting on the train that I feel the desire to cook and make things, but now that Cooking Mama has come out on the DS in Australia, I'm feeling the vibes.
Cooking Mama can best be described as a cooking simulator on the DS. To some, it's just another quirky Japanese game. To others, it's a revolution in gaming, setting new boundaries and creating its own genre. To me, it's just another quirky Japanese game.
I smell an argument brewing.
No, that's your ramen. The DS stylus is used for different activities, such as chopping carrots or wrapping sushi. You also use the microphones for such things as cooling down dishes.
Our player will also prepare all the ingredients first and then go to the procedure of actually cooking it.
This involves monitoring the temperature of the pot, stirring it, mixing bowls for salads, and I'm sorry, man, that's too boring.
Come on, I like it. It's fun. It's weird.
It's too weird. It's like, you've got great games on the DS like Advance Wars. Why would you want to cook? I don't care how long Australia has been deprived of it. It's boring.
I must admit, after a little while, I did want to go and shoot some things, but, you know, it is a novelty game and it is its own genre, so people who like this kind of thing will enjoy the game. So I'm giving it 7 out of 10 pan-fried chickens.
Look, if you're into the whole casual, quirky thing, maybe, all right, give it a try. But I actually think I speak for the majority here when I say 5, and your ramen's done. So did you guess the game for this week?
It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. Released in 1992, at the peak of the show's popularity, it featured all your favourite characters, and it was one of the first games I had to line up in an arcade to play, and it was worth it.
That's it for the show this week.
You might have already heard of Fury, the Aussie-made MMO due out later this year. Well, we travel to Brisbane and go behind the scenes at Orin, the game's developers.
Will be tackling some advanced RTS tips, and another noob will receive the healing hand of Dark.
Till next week, gamers. Bajo out.
Junglist out.